Mike Wilson is a serious tennis player. He was on the International Pro Tour and then, as a senior professional, ran a major tennis club in Southern California. When his family began to grow, Mike went into the world of business, eventually taking charge of all of the lending for a multi-billion-dollar savings and loan organization. With the same passion and dedication he gave to his tennis and banking, Mike founded a business of his own, which has now grown into a worldwide network of independent business owners. As a dynamic business builder and part of the Network 21 leadership team, Mike Wilson is again one of the best coaches in the business. Here's Mike Wilson.
I don't want to take too much time about it, but the truth is that Carla and I have been in the business for 31 years. May 26, 1978, we got in the business, and little trivia, we got in the business the same day, 7 years after Jim and Nancy Dornan. They got in the business May 26th also, but May 26, 1978 is the day that I met Jim and Nancy Dornan and got started in the business. And as excited as we were to get started, we asked Jim and Nancy to get in the business. And so we weren't sponsored in the normal way in that respect. So we started the business excited and driven enough. Actually, what's hilarious is driven to quit Amway. We got in Amway to quit Amway. We got in Amway to for the promises of the dream, and I never ever thought that this would be what I would want to do with my life. And so this morning I'll talk a little bit about that, but we have never been as excited, we've never been as driven as we are right now. So that's dangerous, and that's dangerous because when you get like that, you don't have to be a speaker, you just want to get something done. Do you know what I mean? Carla and I hate speaking anyway, but we really hate it when we don't have a goal. But so I'm saying all that for a reason, which is to warn you, please don't listen totally today because I'm not your upline. And I'm going to talk about how what I feel is the foundational things of building the business. That's sometimes a dangerous area to talk about because there are different foundational philosophies. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to try to cover some things that were absolutely obvious to me. And I think particularly, but it seems like it doesn't seem to be obvious for some people. Carla and I were absolutely horrible in this business. We have been horrible in the business for 31 years. And we don't have time to talk about how horrible we were, but it's true. We sincerely were so bad at Amway. And part of why our belief level is so high is because we're so bad. This is a true story. The first plan I ever did in my home that was not a one-on-one, I spelled Amway wrong. That's true. I kept that tablet for a lot of years because I knew people would not absolutely believe how bad we were at the Amway business when not only when we started, but even today. And I think the only strength I ever had was that I just kind of understood the business. I really understood. I really felt I had the heart of the business. And if we were better, if we could have been better at the business, it took us 11 weeks to be a silver producer from the day that we introduced ourselves to Jim and Nancy. And sincerely, I think if we were better, we could have done it faster. We were executive platinums in 10 months, horrible at the business. And we were fully qualified diamonds after 2.5 years in the business. Horrible at the business. And if we had any strength, I think it was some foundational stuff that I'm going to mention today, but I'm not going to talk about. And for sure, never mistake, in my opinion, that how to do the business is the secret of it compared to things like your belief level and your commitment level and those things. The first thing is, I think, if you don't really grasp this, you're going to have a harder time learning the business. And that is to realize what's at stake here this weekend. It's really about, are you going to live a life of pursuing and living your dreams in life? That's really what it's about. That's a lot at stake. See, when I saw the Amway business, the only thing that even came close to make me be willing to be as uncomfortable as I perceived pursuing this business would be was two things. One was that it was about my dream, that if it was true, that I could have and do and be in life what I wanted to do. I don't know if you've internalized that yet. But if you don't realize what's at stake. See, well, I remember taking my first tennis lesson, and it was a big price to pay for that first tennis lesson because I wanted to be a professional tennis player. I got to tell you, I was all ears that day. I was all ears. And I was all ears because that was not a recreational sport for me. I wasn't trying to have a good time. I was at that lesson because I was hoping that I might be able to do every day that sport, which was my passion. And so for this morning, if you don't realize what's at stake here today, this is possibly your life. And not because of me. I'm just talking about because of this opportunity. Now, if you can get that, if you get your arms around that, and you realize that this business has provided hundreds and thousands of people around the world exactly that promise. It has delivered that. And when you realize to deliver that, to be able to have a business opportunity that can deliver that result, that you then begin to realize how big this is. This is big, 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 big business. Now, I've been around big business. I ran an $18 billion financial institution at one time. Those people were serious. That was big business. And you knew it was big business. When you walked into a board meeting and the people that were in that board meeting, you had to make a presentation, quote, to the board, you knew you were in a serious business. And you better be serious. But sometimes in this business, that can go past you. You do not realize how big business this is. And when you realize how big the business is and how much is at stake, and you put those two things together, you listen a little bit better because you realize there's only two ways to learn anything in life. You either learn by trial and error or you learn by other people's experience. There is no other way to learn anything in life. You either take and try to be a pioneer and figure out something, or, now, and if something hasn't been done, that is your only option. You have to be a pioneer. The people that were first started the Amway business, those guys were pioneers. They had no one to follow. They had nothing. They had no principles. They had no methods. They had nothing. They had to be a pioneer in the business. You don't have to be that this morning. Why did Carla and I go silver in 11 weeks? Because we had the wisdom to listen to Jim and Nancy Dornan, who had done what we wanted to do, and we had the good sense to listen to them and to do what they said to do. Now, you are free to do whatever you want to do. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. I'm not a dictator. Nobody's a dictator. Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody can tell you what to do. Even if they try to tell you what to do, you can tell them to buzz off because it is your business. They didn't hire you. They can't fire you. I'm just trying to say these things go in order to me. If you understand this is about your dream, you understand that this is big business, then you automatically have a different paradigm about when you're listening to CDs or you're listening to somebody who's done what you want to accomplish. It's like if I never asked, and this isn't self-edifying. When Carla and I were new, I spent a minimum of over an hour to 2 hours a day at a coffee shop with Jim and Nancy Dornan, usually with Jim, learning this business. Learning the business. It was an unbelievable experience. For over 6 months, every day I was in a restaurant with Jim. And our conversation was this. He would tell me what I needed to do. I never asked him why. Never once did I ask him why. Never asked him why he wanted me to do something. And no matter how scared we were, and we were scared to death, we went and did it. And the next day, when I came back, I would ask Jim, why did you want me to do that? After I had done what he said that I should do, I would come and ask him, why that? Why do we do that? It doesn't always make sense, does it? So I'm just advising you, not even into my notes, but it's just to say, if you're not on CEP, see, this business is, you can't get promoted. This isn't normal. This is 100% cause and effect business. It's 100% cause and effect business. For some of you, that's good news. For some of you, that's horrible news. See, it doesn't matter how much, the day you realize it didn't matter that if being Jim and Nancy Dornan's friends, Carla and I would already be Founders Crown Ambassadors. If we could get promoted to it, we would already be Executive Diamond. Do you know what I mean? If somehow my attitude and my friendship and I carried his briefcase good enough and I got enough coffee for him and I edified him enough and somehow in all of that menage of stuff, somehow that would get me to be successful in the business, we would already be successful. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to talk about some foundational philosophies that I think were important to Carla and I as leaders. And that is, and I think for some reason, like I was talking about last night, sometimes it's completely for the wrong reason. Completely because we thought that this business was so uncomfortable for us and was so foreign to us, and only because of the end result would we even attempt it. That the first foundational thing that I would say that Carla and I realized that changed me to do the Amway business was at that meeting I talked about last night, which meant the first meeting that I went to for all the wrong reasons. I totally believed the Amway business. I totally understood the business. I didn't have any problem with that. I just could not see myself. I wanted to be successful in the Amway business. I did. I didn't want to not do Amway. I just thought it was a sales business. And I wish I could. I just didn't believe I could. And I didn't believe, you know why I didn't believe I could? Because I had tried desperately to sell in my life. I did. I answered ads every summer when I was in high school. They had these ads that would say, manager trainee. Anybody ever go to these manager trainee jobs? Manager trainee was selling vacuum cleaners, knives. Every one of them was a sales deal. And every guy, some sales guy would draw a plan up on the board and show if you could sell 2 vacuum cleaners over the summer, you could have a Porsche by the end of the summer. And I never sold one of them. And every time I tried to sell something, tried to sell Christmas cards when I was a Boy Scout, never could sell any. I couldn't even sell my mom. That's how bad it was. I could not even get my mom to buy something. I'm not kidding. So I just didn't think that I could be successful. I just didn't think I could do Amway. And I came to that first meeting, and as crazy as this sounds, as I was sitting there and I was looking around, I don't know what you thought. How many of you remember the first time you ever came to a function? And I don't know if you can remember what you were thinking. It is like yesterday that I remember sitting there and thinking, this is what I thought. People do Amway. Now that sounds crazy, doesn't it? I knew it intellectually. Intellectually, I knew people did Amway. But it wasn't till that day that as I was looking, I realized people do this. And I had heard so many tapes by that point. I knew this. People did the business usually in spite of their upline rather than because of their upline. Jim saying last night about his upline quit. His upline quit way before he was successful in the business. His upline quit. He had no mentor in the business. He didn't have any help in the business. Anybody following this yet? Now this is important because you in your heart, you think one of two things. You think this is a business that you convince people, or you think this is a business that you find people. It's one of the two. You either believe that it is a search or it is a sale. That's what I think. And if you believe, now see, this is I know this is too ethereal, but this is what I think. If you believe that it's about you, see, if you think it's a sales business, then it's about you. I have to convince you to do this. And if you feel that, that sets you up for a lot of challenges. First of all, if you're right, in my opinion, you'll never be free. You'll never be free. Because you either feel people do what you want them to do or they do what they want to do. And you know what I think? See, I'm on the side. This is what I think. I think you do what you want to do. I do. I think I do what I want to do. I don't think Jim and Nancy Dornan want me to be a diamond. I think they want me to be an executive diamond. I think they would like me to be a Founder's Crown Ambassador. I think they would like me to get over myself. You know what I mean? I think they'd like me to grow up. I think that if I did what people thought, what other people wanted me to do, I would be thinner. I would be, do you know what I mean? I would be more successful. I would be a lot of things. You know what I mean? There's tons of stuff, but what? I do absolutely what I want to do. Now, this may not make any sense to you, but that was a huge paradigm shift that day, because when I realized that day, people do Amway. People do Amway. They do it in spite of you. And you're either in one camp or the other. Now, if you're in the sales camp, see, then I think there are certain things lead to that. If you're in the sales side, if you feel that you are the long-term influence, see, you can short-term influence people. You can get phlegmatics like me to come to meetings I didn't want to do. They could get me in the business. They just couldn't get me to do the business. You understand what I mean? They could get me to buy a product, but they couldn't get me to buy products. They could get me to listen to a CD, but they couldn't get me on CEP. See, there's a difference between short-term movements, long-term movements. In the long run, those who want to will, and those who don't won't. Now, if you think otherwise, you will focus. If you feel that this is a sale, then you are waiting to get good at this to go diamond. So you have to. Do you know, how many of you have been in the business more than 11 weeks and you're not a silver producer? See, I was a silver producer in 11 weeks. Not because I was good, not because I knew. Do you understand the point? And when you're in a business where the percentage of return, see, if you sponsor 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 5, the mathematical percentages are so small in difference. The person who will work hard will always outachieve the person who works smart. Always. And if you think it's a sales business and somebody says, like John Maxwell says, you spend 80% of your time with the 20% of the people. If you think it is a sales business, you can't do that. You spend 80% of your time trying to get good enough to get the 80% who are never going to do anything because they're going to do what they want to do, which is nothing. And you keep thinking that someday when you get better, then you can then go diamond. Folks, I'll submit this to you. I do not think you go diamond when you think like a diamond. Because I think what you think a diamond thinks about is incredibly different than the reality of being a diamond. The reality is, when you get sick of it, you get committed enough, you're willing to get uncomfortable enough, you're willing to do the cause and effect things that make you a diamond, the experience shapes you into a diamond. It is not the other way around. It is never the other way around. You cannot go to enough meetings, you cannot listen to enough tapes, CDs, you cannot read enough books to become a diamond. You have to get to a point where it's important enough to you that you will set that goal, whatever that next progressive goal is, and you will determine, I will make this thing happen. See, and if you don't understand that it is a search, then you have no idea how important when they say it's all about 15 plans, that's just going right over your head. You just don't get it. You know what I mean? You don't get it. You don't understand that, no, it's all about if you want applications, you got to have plans. You just have to have plans. It doesn't matter. The bad plan will overrule the good plan. Enough bad plans will absolutely. I was sponsored with horrible experience. And I'll tell you what, I introduced myself to Jim and Nancy Dornan, not because I knew they were successful, not because I knew that they had integrity, not because they had a great organization, not for any other reason. You know why I introduced myself to Jim and Nancy Dornan? They were the only single person I knew in the world that was in Amway. The only person. And I got to tell you, until you understand that this is about finding the right people. Now, everybody follow this so far? So we can move on to the next point. So as a leader, when you understand that, and then you understand that if you don't understand it's about finding the right person, then in my opinion, you don't see. When Jim Dornan told me that day, he started me in the business. I wish I had time to do the startup that Jim Dornan started for me. It's exactly like our startup today. But he told me this. He asked me what I wanted. I said everything. He said, when do you want it? I said yesterday. That's a true story. And he said, well, like he said last night, what would he do? When Jim said that last night, that's exactly what he did. He asked me, what was my fears? What were my concerns? And I looked at Jim and I said, I'm not a salesman. I said, I think I look good from the outside, but inside, I'm a mess. Because why did I tell him that? Because I knew what was at stake. My dream was at stake. And I had to be transparent to that guy because my dream was at stake. And I told him that I was an absolute mess and I wasn't a good salesman. He started laughing. And the reason why he was laughing, he said, Mike, he said, you got to sell 2 things in this business. You got to get good at 2 things. That's what he told me. I've said this a million times around the world. He said, you got to get good at 2 things. Selling appointments, because it was all about apps. But I had to get good at selling appointments, and I had to get good at selling tickets. If you don't understand that this is a search, I do not know how people can be in this business and experience the business and then not understand it. Because how many of you thought there is no way, if somebody would have told you at one time in your life, someday your passion is going to be Amway? How many of you would have just said, in a million years, it's never going to happen? Anybody? I want you to think when that changed for you. When you were a non-Amway person and you became an Amway guy. I became an Amway guy. I didn't want to be an Amway guy. You know what I wanted to be? Cool. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be cool. I thought I was cool. I worked at being cool. Amway seemed the uncoolest thing in the world. Do you know? I didn't want... Some of you guys have ego problems. I didn't have an ego problem. I had a cool problem. And I want you to think, when was it? Where were you at? Do you remember when that changed for you? How many of you remember the moment you went from a non-Amway guy to a full-on Amway guy? Anybody remember that? I'll tell you where you weren't. I said it last night. I have never had somebody say, I just wanted to be cool, but the day I put that SA8 in the washing machine and it came out, I didn't care about cool anymore. This was it. This was my life. It was the day that I used artistry. It was that day that I was and I looked in the mirror. If I would have known that, I would have been an Amway guy years ago. That would have made the difference. That would have made the difference. So, because if you don't understand these foundational things that build on themselves, where were you? Anybody remember? How many were out of function? Stand up if you were out of function the day that you said, the thing I would have never wanted to be was an Amway guy, and today I am an Amway guy. Jim said I had to sell tickets. And if you changed your mind at a function, see, this is what's so ridiculous. I talk to my group about this all the time. I go and I teach them no matter what. They're prospecting. This is what they do. Hi, so what was your name? What do you do? See, they're prospecting. They're not listening to their name. They're not listening to anything. This is what they're thinking. PV, man. PV. I'm going to sell you a product. You're going to buy a product. And if you don't buy a product, you're going to recruit somebody who will. And because it's all about PV, man. And I'll tell you what, you get what you focus on. I've done this a million times around the world. I don't have much time, but I'll just give you a point here real quick as leaders. Think about your watch. How many times do you look at your watch every day? Anybody have a wristwatch on today? Don't look at it, because I ask you a couple of questions. I want you to think about your wristwatch. Think about what it looks like. What's the color of the face of your wristwatch? Does it have secondhand on it? Does it have numbers, Roman numerals, marks? Is there writing on your wristwatch? Is there the date? Does it have a bevel? What's on it? If there's writing, is it above or below the center of your watch? Right? I know I'm asking you real quick because I'm almost out of time. How many of you are thinking? I really want you to think. Think about your watch. You look at it 1,000 times a day. If you have a job, you look at it 5,000 times a day. Right? And you look at it every day and you are thinking about, you don't really know. You think, but you're not sure, are you? You're not sure, and you look at it every day. Why? Because you don't think about that. Check out your watch. Check out your watch. How'd you do? Anybody surprised? Now I have another question. What time is it? What time? You just looked at your watch. What time is it? See, because you make a mistake. You get what you focus on. And I'm kidding with you, but I am not kidding. This is my group. When they do it, I'm just telling you the difference between how I think and how most of my group thinks. When they think of core, this is what I visualize, they visualize. There's 7 elements of core. And so they're trying to get somebody started, and they're trying to move them to core. It's perfect square, 7 by 7 by 7. Okay? That's not how I visualize core. I visualize core how people visualize Amway. Because just like to be successful, you have to be core, right? And just like to live as a human being, I'm told, I don't know if this is true, but I am told that if you don't have human contact, ultimately, if you are isolated and you don't have human contact, particularly a baby who is not touched and is put by themselves, that they ultimately will die. You have to have that. You have to have that. I've been told, being from America, I've never experienced this, if you don't eat, you die. Right? If you don't have food, someday you're going to die. Okay? I've been told that. I also have been told that if you don't have water, you're going to die. Right? And I know this. If you don't have air, you're going to die. But they are not equal. They are not equal. You have to have them ultimately. You have to have exercise. You have to have food. You have to have water. But, buddy, you better get some air. You better get some air. That better be up there. And before you worry about exercise, you better have some food in you. And and all of these things are in priority. And this is what I see. I know this. CDs. If they do not have, you know how I picture a CD? I picture a CD as an oxygen mask. You take it away, and they are on their way down. Do you know, why do I think that? Because I know me. I believe in the business. Absolutely. I believe in the system. Intellectually, this is what I know. I'll be a double diamond next year. Emotionally, not in your life. No, why? Because that little voice inside me, after 31 years, after success in this business, after no matter what goes on the outside, inside, you know what it's saying? Who do you think you are, Mike? You think you can do it? You know, North America is a pretty tough market. 50 years. And you know when that voice stops? When that CD is on. And see, if you don't understand what the business is really all about, then when you hear this stuff, you don't really hear the same thing. So, because if it's a search, you have to understand then, what am I looking for? What am I looking for? I got in the business for only one reason, and that was to be free. And that meant I needed to be a diamond. I did not want to be an Amway fanatic, but I met some Amway fanatics, and I thought if I could find 6 of these fanatics, someplace in the world, if I could find 6 of these fanatics, I could go off and be cool. You know what I mean? I could be cool. I'd never have to admit I was an Amway. I'd be out. Everything would be good. Okay? So the benefit I had was I didn't care to the worst degree. I didn't care. I didn't care if you sold product. I didn't care. I cared about one thing. Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? I was looking for the one. I wanted them to be at that meeting. I could finish the meeting, take their temperature. What'd you think of the meeting? Too long. Wrong person. That bald-headed guy, he didn't understand one thing he said. Wrong guy. Wrong person. Wrong person. What did you think? What did you think I was looking for that guy? So the world, this is what they think. They think it's a sales business. And if it's a sales business and you have product, what would you do? You would market product. That's what you would do. That's your entry level. That's your entry level. I'll talk about that a little this afternoon. No offense to anybody, but when somebody tries to put me in the direct sales box, not that we don't do that, it's just not what we are. That is not what we are. If you think that's what we are, if you market, then your entry level in the business is a salesperson. That's what you're looking for. That's who you're interviewing. And if that's your entry level, and you hear the word duplication, then the only thing that you can duplicate is what? Salespeople. And if you duplicate salespeople, you're back to my corporate experience, and you're a sales manager. And that's why people, when I introduce myself, and I say I'm in the Amway business, they think I am a great motivator. They think somehow I became a diamond because I am a big, inspirational, rah-rah guy who can get them in a room and just fire them up to sell that LLC. Why? Because if you start with this paradigm, you have to go to this paradigm. So then if you expand and you want to have a great business and you go and Mitch and Deidre or Peter and Debbie go and tell somebody their success in the business, they think that they are national, international, regional, combined Cupra sales managers under them, that they have recruited and trained and they've got all these people. When you totally understand, we expand, duplicate, and market. The absolute opposite of what the world thinks. We start off because, like Jim said, this is an ownership business. We are looking for owners, for leaders, for dreamers. And if you don't understand this, you'll never understand the Network 21 system, because what we're trying to duplicate is ownership and leadership and dreamers. And you think you're hearing it, but you're not hearing it. You think you're getting it, but you're not getting it. Do we market product? You better believe it. I want to go to that gym because I love to exercise. And at my age, I need to exercise. When I go to that gym, that's what I get, exercise. And that's all I get. But I also play tennis. I love playing tennis. And I love to surf. And I don't surf for exercise. And I don't play tennis for exercise. It is a byproduct of doing what I love. It is a byproduct of doing what I love. And when I do what I love, when Mitch is on that bike, he loves to ride, but he gets exercise. And you get your passion, and you get what you need to fuel it. And when you understand what we really do and what this is really about, do we market product better than anybody in the world? Totally by accident. Someday we'll actually focus on it and get good at it, and the world has no idea what they'll do.